want to thank Salisbury Art Space for providing this rain venue, and to Pack 14 for covering the readings always so beautifully, and to Salisbury Arts Alliance for their support of poetry as an art form, and to our unabashed czars of joy, the Salisbury Arts Business and Culture Department, who gave poetry a home, Poets Corner. And they work long and hard to bring us the events that unite us as a citizen family. So I can't say enough about them, but I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for us. And Carolyn O'Hare, who is the director, correct, of, I never can, is right up there. It's a big player. I don't know what to say, but anyway, she's fantastic, and behind the scenes over here is Chris Ford, who's just a terrific audio guy, and so we have this great little group here, and it's just wonderful, and thank you all for coming. I've known Sharnell. In fact, the first time I met you, Sharnell, was with Amber Green, who has a remarkable talent for bringing the right people together. We were at the Together Cafe, and we just met, and I went down to Pocomoke and read in your reading series, and you sent me a video, and it's a poem that I hope you read, and I thought, this is someone that is, she's from the stars, that's all I have to say. She channels, you'll see. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but what I wanted to do, I'm going to read you a little bio here about her, but then I'm going to prevail upon Sister Big to answer a few questions that will help orient you to her work. I think it's important for everyone to get a sense of where poets are coming from, because poetry is a vast kind of ocean where many, many fish swim in it with their own special kind of mission, I guess you would say. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But Sharnell was born and raised in Pocomoke City, Maryland. She is from here, right? Not that we make those distinctions, but I just thought it would be a cool thing. I don't, but I would be out in the cold. Okay, and she's been showcased in many, many venues, among them Salisbury Wicomico Arts Council, Salisbury University Arts Gallery, and you and I collaborated at the Ward Museum reading, the Maryland Folk Festival, Salisbury Pride, and Juneteenth, and that's just a few of the events that she's always a very important feature in. So her most prized collaborations are with students at Pocomoke High School and Bennett High. She hosts a monthly open mic series called, do you have a name for it, or is it just, it's Pocomoke Public Library, and it's affiliated with Chris Field's Arts and Entertainment. Okay, all of those are out of the way. This is really, Sister, do you want to come up here and answer some questions, and I'll get out of your way and just pitch them to you, because I think they're really interesting. I meant to mention, because I was going to put a plug for you to buy some of her books, but like me, she accidentally forgot them. And, so next reading, she will bring some when we host Cassandra Whitaker, who is a colleague. Yeah, up here, yeah. So, very good. I've never had this kind of treatment before. I don't think it's on. Oh, switch it on?
No, you're already on.
It's already on. Oh, I am on. So, Sharnell. In your bio,
I feel like I'm on the news.
Sharnell. In your bio, you talked about, you knew from a very early age that you were destined to write and speak poetry to and for the masses. Was this a moment that you had this realization? There's a wonderful poem by Louise Glick where it's about Joan of Arc, and she talks about, I heard the voice in the trees speak of God's great grace, my body hardened into armor, which is this fabulous image of what the transformation, when you align with your destiny. How did you know?
I always tell this story of when I was a kid, and
I was so mad at my mom for something, and I wrote a poem. And that's the first time I ever remember writing an angry poem and emoting my feelings in that way. But what most people don't know is my grandfather was a poet. My grandfather, he died in 97. He actually died on my birthday in 1997. And not until after his death did I learn that he was a poet. And I had already been cultivating my talents already. I've always was a voracious reader. I would read like books on the way to school. I read a book on the way home. That's all I would do. Goosebump books. Y'all remember those Goosebump books? Like I would read them and read them. I make up my own stories, all scary stories. I don't know why I don't like scary movies now. Maybe that's why. But it was something I knew that I had the talent to do. I remember reading a poem he wrote. He had very fancy handwriting. And I remember a crumpled up piece of paper that my cousins gave me after his funeral. And to this day, I probably don't even know where it is. But at the time, I had it in the Bible. And I would open it up and I would read it. I would read his little fancy handwriting, his poem he wrote. And I would think, like, I wonder what it would be like to write a poem with him. I wonder what it would be like to hear him say those things, because he was a quiet man. He loved church, he loved fishing, and he liked watching Matlock. Those are the only times you really heard him have any emotion. So like to see him have this feeling on paper and me hold it in my hand and being able to almost tap into maybe what he was thinking or what he was feeling, I wanted to have that power. I wanted to know what it was like. And I knew once I started, I knew that it was for me. Sure, other people can write a poem. Sure, other people can read a poem. But there is nothing in comparison to me reading. There is nothing in comparison to me writing a poem. And I mean that very humbly speaking. There's nothing more powerful than me at the seat of my own will with a pen in my hand. I just know it's me, without a doubt.
And you know, you do write in other voices, as I do. And a lot of people hear a poem read in the I voice, but it is not the poet. It's the poet's speaker, that they're choosing to inhabit this particular person. So I think you do that very convincingly. And I was blown away, still am blown away, because it seems that you're not, I hate to use that word channeling, it's so, trite, but it does seem like you're in touch with something else. And as a poet myself, I know that feeling, it's kind of fleeting, and you know you've got something. When you look up and you say, oh, where was I? Where am I?
Very much so.
And you're out of that kind of place. I remember when the first time I started writing when I was young, but I didn't show it to anyone. But one time in 7th grade, I wrote a story about, it was really sappy, but my English teacher cried. And I thought, well, I can move. These words are powerful in the same way your mother, maybe she was mad at you, but you know what? You moved someone, and you move people all the time. And I'm going to stop talking. Sharnell.
So at the time, I'm sorry to sound repetitive, but I've shared this story before about my mother. and during the month of February, she got really sick. So I knew something was wrong, but we weren't sure what was wrong. So when it came down to it, she had COVID. The COVID was putting pressure on her heart. So her heart was losing its function. All these things metastasized, and one thing made one thing worse than the other. So in all this time, I'm battling these things with my mother, and I'm fighting these things with my mother. And I'm the only child, so I'm battling all alone. When I say alone, I may talk to a family member at night, or I may talk to a friend at night, but I'm still alone when the phone hangs up. I'm still alone when I lay my head down and go to sleep and those thoughts start rushing onto me. I'm still alone that she's not in the house. I don't hear her laughing. I don't hear the TV too loud that I can't hear my own. Like all those little things that usually nag us, those things I was missing. So I was fighting this battle with my mother in February, and it went for 2 weeks. She was in PICU. She was bounced back from PICU to ICU, from PICU to ICU. And these people were telling me, I don't know if you know, you've been on a deathbed with a person, but they'll come to you very plainly and just say what's what, with no emotion. Hey, your mother's on a cold call. So at night, we're going to call you if she doesn't make it, and you have to make your decision then and there. How powerful is that to say, hey, my mom can live or die? So with all those things compounding on me, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with this series. And I thought to myself a few days ago, I said, I want to tell her story, and her story is my story. And if I'm nothing else, I am nothing else but a storyteller. So if you just ride with me for a little bit, I want to give you a few quips, a few poems. And if you're familiar with me already, you already know I jump in between the poem, and I may talk and have a conversation, and we may laugh, and then I'll jump right back into the poem without notice. My name is Sharnell. I go by Sista Big. I know we've already said this, but it's nothing like announcing yourself. I am from Pocomoke City, Maryland. I am a 4-time self-published author. I do all things in the community. If you haven't seen me at some point, you will see me again. So I hope you guys enjoy tonight. I am not opposed to questions or comments or woo or yeah or that's a nice line. Y'all know that makes me flow, that makes me go, that makes me want to continue. So my first piece I want to visit today is my grandmother had 2 daughters. And on the 21st day of February, 1 year apart, each babe came forcing themselves to the top, rising like cream, bursting at seams, popping corks in celebratory fashion. LaDonnie, my auntie, and Lorraine, my mother, wailing for mommy's tit, grasping for independence, shadowing one another unapologetically. If you haven't already figured out, my mother was born on my aunt's birthday, February 21st, 1961, 1962, gathering one another sisterly. Who had the nerve to separate these 2 beings? Who had the gall to remove these 2 beings? Who had the audacity to kill these 2 beings? My grandmother had 2 daughters, who in turn had 2 daughters, Sean, my older cousin, Sharnell, who you see in person, in their own right with knowledge of past lives would never. They stirred themselves on level ground. We didn't want to be who our mothers were. The former grew way too soon, and responsibility became what she just had to do. Sean became mother. Who could blame a kid masking as an adult? It was never your fault. You had to grow. Didn't you hear the story of the bird who forgot to fly? You had to go. I know who you were, and I know who I am, very much the child, the latter losing hearings of what child entailed. After the rain, the snails pick up and start again. We had to pick up and start again. We had to pick up and live again. We had to pick up and breathe again. We had to pick up and love again. Who would keep a flower from maturing? Who's that nasty? Spilling salt was bad luck. We forgot to toss some. Breaking the backs of what should have been easy. Didn't you hear the personal prayer for you? Didn't you hear the personal prayer for Sharnell? Didn't you hear the personal prayer for Sean? My grandmother had 2 daughters born to the struggle of greed, born to the struggle of grug, born to the struggle of not knowing who was who inside, instead created their own by design, flying by the seat of their pants respectfully, fast-paced, loose, and free. A child with a tempting amount of candy, shoveling in the mouth, she warned you what could happen now. My grandmother had 2 daughters. One of them is gone. I always like to bring my aunt into the conversation. My aunt LaDonnie was a woman of force to be reckoned with. I only know her in story. I've always told I was a little baby, and I used to crawl up on the couch when she was laying down, and I'd crawl and I'd touch her toes. Nothing more annoying when somebody's picking with your toes while you're sleeping, right? And she would say, "Get the baby, get the baby." Mine had a heavy New York accent. "Get the baby." And they come and they grab me, and that's really all I knew of her. I'm lucky enough to have her daughter, my older cousin, raise me. And I'm lucky enough to have my grandmother, who was living at the time, and my mother share stories of her. However painful they are to reminisce on, they always share with me. And they always tell me, even older cousins as well, you look just like your Aunt Donnie. You sound just like your Aunt Donnie. And I'm always told she was unruly. She would put on her army fatigue jacket, she have a little fro, and she'd go out into the world, and that just was her. She was fearless. And unfortunately, she was taken from us too early. But you know what? In knowing that and in healing from that, you learn to grow on top of the pain. You learn to grow on top of hurt. Regardless of if she is gone, we have her in our heart. We have her in our spirit. We have her daughter here to look at. We have her grandkids here to look at, which is a marvelous thing. So I'm going to jump into another piece. And because we talk about the pain of loss, and because this is for mothers, and mothers are women, and women have a history of problems. The women in my family have a history of problems. We're hard-headed, angry creatures from the root. We're braided barks of aunties being mothers and cousins being sisters. We're a mixture. We're Mother Nature constrict in fibroid tumors. We're clotting hearts. We're blocked at every attempt, dissipating harbored grief. Stubbornly bore in the crook of sunrise. We're stubbornly put to death in the breast of sunset. The women in my family have a history of problems. Do yours? We're flagrant colors of the hibiscus flower. We're calibis. We're black undertones from the bone taught to the tongue. We're clicking against the jaw. Our taste ain't for everyone. We are naturally smart from the root, from the leaf. We are medicine women with elixirs to cure the common cold. The women in my family have a history of problems. Don't yours? Cantankerously bore when the odds were desperately stacked unfavorably in the end zone. The women in my family prevailed and they continue. The women sitting in here prevailed and they continue. The woman that stands right here has been in many situations, but I prevailed and continued. The woman you see is prevailing and continuing as I'm talking today. You see, the women in my family have a history of problems. We're barren bodies with menstrual valleys that never peak. We're hard on the physique. We're big bones that stake claim to most of our souls, and even still, we're the ones that God chose. You see, the women in my family have a history of problems, and even still, we're the ones that God chose. The women in this room have a history of problems, but even still, we're the ones God chose. Women problems. Thank you. Everybody good? Can you get this one? My phone. So I wanted to share, women problems are always a finicky thing. And that poem originally was, thank you, written to talk about the woman body. At the time, I was going through some issues with, women issues. So unfortunately, I've seen doctor after doctor after doctor, and they don't tell you this. And at the time, it was a lot heavier, so they say, what do they always say? Oh, first thing, oh, yeah. Never mind that I'm continuously bleeding. Never mind that my headaches are mountainous on top of my head. Oh, just lose weight. That's very easy to say, very dismissive. So in saying that and in writing that poem, I wanted to also talk about my mother and talk about my aunts and talk about, the women in my family. Most of them did have issues with fibroid tumors and things like that. So to relate back to that, and to even as a man, you can relate to people in your family have a history of problems if you don't have one yourself. But just to be able to compare the two and put them in a working poem and make people understand, man or woman understand these things, it's a powerful tool. Poetry is I always say poetry is a mending tool. It's like a patchwork quilt, if you will. you sow into these things and you sow your part in, and I may sow this about my mom, and you may sow something about your father, and you may sow something about your uncle or whatever, and we've all built this story, this thing that brings us together. Poetry brings people together. Poetry is a common denominator. It is honestly the blood that keeps us together. It is us. It's the heart and soul. We love music, sure. We love to hear music. We like to dance and we like to do those things. But poetry is just something about poetry. I don't have to have it to music. Most times I don't even want it to music. And instead of, I do just want to add that ambiance. But in saying that, like, your words are so powerful. I'm glad some kids are in here, even if some of it goes over the top of their heads, but they understand that words are powerful. Words mean everything. When you have something good to say, when you have something, even if you have something bad to say, people are going to stop and listen to you. Words are $1 million bank account, and you do with it what you will. You deposit or you withdraw. Sure.
The poem that you just read was really very powerful. And what I noticed is that, the repetition, the example, it builds it, and it seems like you're speaking in for call and response.
I'm very much a church kid. I'm very much raised in that old holiness or non-denominational church, so I'm used to that call and response. I'm used to that if I say yes. I don't need to really hear you say yes, but it's just me knowing that if you're looking at me and attentive and I'm saying yes, it's just that I know I've captured what I need from you. I know I got you in my hand, so to speak, and I can do whatever I want with you. So that repetitiveness is to hold you in. It is to, and it's
a spell.
Oh, very much, very much. 'Cause it's, I don't want to say an incantation almost, but it is. It very much is one. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. It's just like a preacher. When they pound on something or they continue to drive something in, I want you to understand that this is the important thing. This is what I want you to take home. I like doing this. I never have people, this is practice for me at the end of the month. I'll be in Dover and they have like a Q&A and I'm like, I don't want these people to ask me anything. But this is really good practice for me, so I appreciate this very much. And please, if you do have a question, don't be afraid to ask. Hold it for after the poem at least, but don't be afraid to ask. I'm gonna delve into my next piece. In talking about my mother and her sister, and in talking about aunties and cousins, I was asked to do a project on sisterhood a few years ago. And so I wrote this poem, and I compared us to peanut chews. If you have a sister, like I said, I'm an only child, but I have a 14-year-old god sister, and she's been in my life literally since the day she was born, so that's my heart. That's my little sister. So when I wrote this poem, I was thinking of her. And even though I am 30-something, and she is 14, soon to be 15, our relationship is very much like older sister, little sister fighting. I'm still going to argue with you. I don't care. It's very real life over here. Like peanut chews, I grew up the dark chocolate that sunk into the crevices of teeth. Syrupy love that was a rotten to the core conjunction of course, I ain't gonna tell on you. And sour puckering lemons that caused us both to get whoopings. This is recognizing sisterhood. A minty cleaning the accumulation of welled up love between us. A heaving chest we're hard to breathe because our laughs are so deep. In the middle of catching ourselves and regaining composure, where the very brick and mortar, we're long standing, we're traditions of transitioning, healing from one another, because that's what sisters do. Even if you're not blood, we congregate one another, we love on one another, we share one another, we celebrate one another. This is recognizing sisterhood. This recognition is the proverbial line of don't leave one another behind, a threatening passage that my mom still to this day today says, whenever God, sister, 20 years my junior and I cross thresholds, I am responsible. I am a responsible elder tending to the sap of you. I hold you in condition. I make sure you're safe. I make sure there's no harm against you. I do what I am supposed to do. I do what I was taught to do, a continuation of what was done for me, recognizing sisterhood. Thank you. I've had a good life as a child. I wasn't raised primarily by my mother. I was raised by grandmas, and aunties, and cousins, and that type of situation. But see, those things do not knock me at all. Those things actually make me a better person. I would say the community of people I was raised by has in turn instilled all that you see today. I picked up my aunt's very blunt demeanor. I picked up my grandmother's ability to make you laugh. I picked up my cousin's ability, business mind. I can conduct a class. I get those things from her. All these people have in turn made me who I am. You see, when I was in high school, maybe like 9th grade, I went to live with my great aunt, my grandmother's sister. She was, of course, my grandmother's sister, so she was an older woman at the time. And she didn't have any kids. So, of course, and she lived with her husband. So, of course, me, 9th grade, 13, 14, coming in, used to have my way, and she's very set in her ways, So you come in, and it's almost like you got to learn one another. And I was lucky enough to have her all 4 years of high school, a little bit of college, and a little bit after that. So in knowing her connection, and in knowing her connection to my grandmother, and in her being one of the last sisters living, having her in turn not just be Aunt Belle, but be Mom Belle for me was a very different thing. Usually we just went to her house on the weekend, or if we had family reunion, that's where it was at. No one wanted to go to Aunt Belle's house. She was the mean aunt, She didn't have no kids. You get out my yard with all that. Don't run around playing over my porcelain dolls over there, all of those things. She was one of those older women, She didn't mess around. She sat on her porch, ate her pork rinds. She had her beer. The little dog would run. You don't bother her dog. If you didn't like the dog didn't like you. You don't mess around with it. But when I came into her life, she softened for me. In seeing that and in knowing that now as an adult, it was a precious thing. Like I said, she was an older woman at the time, no kids, married, and her dog was her kid, So having her in turn soften for me and soften her heart for me as a daughter literally made my formative years better because I didn't have a place to live. She took me in. I didn't have anyone watching and making sure I was going to high school. She did. She would, we lived on 667. If you know 667 is by Cisco, it's like you're going down into Chrisfield and all those places. So I'll tell you something about her and then I'll get into the poem. For a lady who was as mean as a junkyard dog and didn't care if you was a kid or not, you're going to do what she said. And her favorite thing was, excuse me, kids, but this is my goddamn trailer. That was her favorite thing to say. That she'd get drunk and she'd let you know, this is my goddamn trailer and you ain't doing that here. But this woman literally, we had a little driveway, and I didn't have far to walk from the house to the driveway to get on the bus. But literally every morning, if it was scorching hot or if it was snow outside, she would back her car up, not even 2 spaces, to make sure I was warm or I was cool, or I wasn't getting eaten up by the mosquitoes out there in the ditches on 667 while waiting for the bus every morning. So this stoned woman, this hard woman had softened her heart in such a way. And when I lost her, it was magnanimous. It was a very painful thing. And I remember her casket going down. And I remember telling my mother, she can't breathe. Get it off her, she can't breathe. They literally had to carry me out of the funeral. This poem came to me while writing my second book, and it's called Why I Still Blow the Horn at 667. If you're from the country like me, you know You going by, you hearing burn, you don't know if it's a hey, you don't know if it's a cuss out, you don't know if it's what. But you know just to put your hand up and what, wave, right? While I still blow the horn on 667, I remember my Aunt Belle told me one summer before Outward Bound, if you keep yourself on the straight path, I'll fight for you. She always had my back. If you mess up, you fend for yourself. She wasn't afraid to tell you the truth. A warning sign divinely sent sticking to the credo. It's natural to always want Tyson in your corner. I had Zola Bell. As far as I was concerned, they were one and the same. A 1-2 punch would knock you out of frame. My auntie was a gardener, full-on tilling, soiling, mixing, hands buried into dirt. Every spring, she'd get in her flower bed and pull roots. I'd be out there sweating. Can't say no. Pulling roots. Pulling roots. Are we done yet? No. She'd get down on her knees and speak life into the soon-to-be butter beans and string beans too. My uncle, her husband, JT, was a quiet man in reality, coming alive with a long neck in his hand. With the hacking of fish, he was precise. A legend, everyone knew his celebrity. Everyone knew my Uncle JT. He was the watermelon man. He was the fish man. He was the butterbean man. He was the man in the red Mustang just riding around. I find myself traveling 667 for work now, and I used to turn off before I'd reach them for fear that a waft of sadness would override. I understand now why people blew the horn. I find myself now staring at an abandoned home on 667, and I still blow the horn. While I still blow the horn on 667. Thank you. I'd like to share about my aunt. Like I said, she didn't have kids, but when I came into her life, I was very much her daughter. She did everything she needed to do for me to get me to graduate high school. It wasn't a hard thing. I wasn't a bad kid or anything, just life circumstances get in their way. When you're a kid, you don't have control over what the adults do. But I'm grateful to have people who saw me. And when I say saw me, not just visually looking at me, I mean saw me on the inside, saw my soul, saw what I was destined to be. She saw me to 4-H classes. She saw me to public speaking contests. She saw me when I came home showing her the blue ribbons for first place, and she'd jump up, and when she'd jump up, the dog would jump up too. Everybody celebrating. Like, she saw me, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. So I couldn't not respect her and do respect her today. I'm gonna jump. Anybody, questions, anybody so far? No? All right, cool. I'm gonna flow with it then, okay? So, I'm sure if you knew me maybe last summer or so, a few months ago, I had long locks. They were long, down my back. And I chose to cut them because my sides were thinning. So every morning I was getting up, I was finding a lock. Sometimes I was getting out of the car, there was a lock on the ground. And you lose your hair, you start getting depressed. You start feeling very sad. You start feeling less womanly. My mother also had locks. And on her 58th birthday, she decided to cut hers. Not because she was losing them, not of anything of that sort, just because, you know. My mother cut her locks 10 days before her 58th circle around the sun. I've been bored with creativity lately, and nothing on the dome constantly leaves an empty home. So I say that in part because I'm like, she's cutting off the top of her head. It's leaving her empty almost, just to bring you together. When the discussion comes forcing its way of how you learn to do this thing I'm doing now, I most often answer with my grandfather. Elmer was a poet, and I ramble about the Holy Spirit of 1 Corinthians washing me anew with the power of God himself. What I should probably give as validation is not widely known. My mother is a poet, a collective honeybee buzzing and kicking queendom down. Sis is the clicking nature of sass twirling necks. And when I say I'ma tell my mama on you, you should quiver. She's a revention of the connoisseur level, a whole mystery cliffhanger monologue delivered by the guest poet, a spotlight to attentive teeth clicking, you snapping your thumbs expeditiously. Everything about this was meant to be. My mother cut her locks 10 days before her 58th circle around the sun, and as always, without her noticing, she initiated a strengthening inside of me. Who just goes and cuts their hair off without anything to say about it? A strengthening of bonds once more, solidifying the self-righteous passage to do just what the hell you want to do. My mama cut her hair 10 days before her 58th birthday, a circle around the sun. And in retrospect, who can argue with that? My mother. You know, it means something to just get up and go willy-nilly and do stuff like that. And it's always encouraging to see your mom just pick up and be a badass, or your whoever you look to, even yourself, just you surprise yourself. When I decided to cut my hair, I called my little sister. I know me calling her for advice. And I called her, I was like, I think I want to cut my hair. She said, it's just hair. And that was the conversation, and I just went and cut it off. Like, the power to be able to change yourself in an instant is very powerful, even. So just to move the story along, I wanted to touch back on my aunt. I have this piece called Donnie's Songs, and I titled it Donnie's Songs, Chiba's Part 4. My aunt's nickname was Chiba, and if you know Chiba was a lady who liked to chief smoke. So she was a person who was tough. She was rough. She was into what she was into. She was, all of those things. But in turn, she was poetry as well. So this is Donnie's Songs. Art is so transcending, and I meet it on so many levels. Finality with Chiba was bubbling, a gurgling stew brewing a nasty desire and dangerous intentions. Unbeknownst to us, this was the last time we'd ever see our sister, bopping with her fro, doing its own dance while she commanded sidewalk wood. A tough chick we know, and she was stranger to none. She was dancing the line, singing, humming her song, her psalms, Donnie's song. It was a Yonkers state of mind that threw our hero in a dark alleyway on the wrong side of worse. And for a family of one special daughter, this was soon to be a nightmare, a fear of shallow pools so deep waters were unheard of for our auntie to frequent. 'Twas a known thing around our parts. No doubt in my mind it was a thief, an intruder who managed to rip a tidal wave of drowning, unbearable sadness, and here we be now clinging to one another. This is Donnie's Songs. This is her song. This is her psalm. This is her humming. This is her singing. Big sis, death be the fertilizer. She was the flower to nurture and naturalize these diamond eyes, because she got two more who look like her. Because she's Donnie, she's one and the same as me. Chiba is a never-ending chorus of how excellent thy name. She's our unsung Shiro donning catsuit. She's busting dope moves. Everything about her is hero. She's singing, she's humming her song, her psalms, Donnie's song, Donnie's songs. Thank you. So these are my last two pieces. And before I deliver them, I just wanted to talk about, for women like myself who aren't mothers, I have a lot of friends, a lot of cousins who have children. Some of them call me auntie. Some of them cling to me like, white on rice. Because of the issues I have, womanly issues I have, it's not in my lifeline to be a mother. So as of late, with surgeries I've had and things I've gone through, I sat with my thoughts. And I was thinking of, if I was at the altar with Jesus, what would I say? What would I say about not being able to do this womanly thing? Does it make me less than? Of course not. Does it make me sad? Of course it does. But nothing about me is as barren as it looks. I'm full of joy. I'm full of love. I'm full of laughter. And those kids that I try to say, get away from me, they cling even more. So this is altar. I've been thinking about motherhood lately. I've only known how to be a daughter. The altar I have to offer is a barren house of clenched teeth and soulless laughter and mindless chatter. I was praying for you, and the voice, unbeknownst to me, had no power. A damaged larynx made for a dilapidated tomb, an uncantankerous wound, as you can imagine. There's never been bloom here. There's never been elevation here. There's only room for desecration and deplorability. See, this is my altar. I was praying for me, and the crucible at max heat was a weapon. I was praying for you, and it was tempered porcelain. I was praying for us, and it was pressed on skin. I was praying again, and it was a continued torture. See, the altar I am at is nothing more than this, bearing a large gaping fire now. We find the bread warm for devouring. We find ourselves warm for devouring. We find ourselves warm for devouring. We do this in remembrance, and at least our bellies are full with something. Altar. Thank you. I don't know Nancy stepped out, but anybody got any questions or anything? All right.
You don't look married.
Well, thank you. And you know what? It's like when you get those diagnoses and those things like that, they're like, okay, I don't know. I always seem, I'm not a very talkative person other than doing poetry. So this is the most you're going to get. It's like, nah, I'm joking. But listen, when you get those kind of, have those kind of conversations with doctors where we need to test you for this, or we're seeing a mass here, or, you know, there's an abnormality. Nothing. Yeah. So it's like as if an abnormality. What do you mean? Yeah, exactly. Like something about me isn't right, you know, and you have to take that in. And I had to swallow it, and I had to chew it, and I had to be one with it. And then I had to come back, because the doctor had to come back too after the test. I mean, we both had to come back to each other, you know. So we both had to come back. And when he came back, he said, it says abnormal, but we don't see anything there. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's good. But that means I'll have to continue to look out. And I have to continue to be a lookout, not only for myself now, because I've been looking out for this person, and I've been looking out for that person all along. So now I got to look out for myself. And I got to look out for my mind, not to go crazy with it. And I got to look out for my body, not to go foolish with that, because you can very well lose your body as well as you losing your mind. You lose your body just as well. I couldn't go and have a big old drink, you know, because of this problem. I couldn't go and scarf down a whole bunch of food because of this problem. That used to be my thing to do, you know. But I had to figure out what worked for me. So getting all those things and having all those stuff come on you and pile on and pile on and pile on and pile on, I had to slowly start cutting away. Okay. And in all of this, I'm still doing shows. I'm still coming and giving power to other people. And I'm standing at the Man on the Shore Summit, and I'm telling these people in the audience, like, you don't know, the day before, I was really ready to die. Like, I was ready to cancel it out. And it just, by word of mouth, one person says one thing about you here, and then your whole life switches and changes. So I know what it's like to be at death. Like, I know what it's like to be there at my own hand and at somebody else's hand, like because of a situation, you know, and I can't stay there. I got to mother myself back to life. I had to mother myself, and I also had to mother my mother at the same time. So I'm having all these, you know how the MCU is. You have this storyline and that storyline, and if I pick up this pen at 7:05, the whole world's gonna change. So I'm feeling like all of those backstories and all of those things is in turn like pummeling down on me, and I gotta find my way out. I gotta search for it. I gotta dig for it. I gotta find what's for me, and this is solely for me. Like you may have gotten something from this poem or one of these poems, but tonight it magnified me. It mothered me in a very powerful way. So, yes.
I was thinking, so I didn't know that you had gone through this.
Sure.
And immediately I think, oh God, this is about celebrating mothers. Oh God, oh my God. And how hurt. I'm so sorry, and you're not alone in a lot of, but then I start thinking of celebrating mothers, and to talk about your aunts, talk about the people in your family, and how everyone, even when you're on without the who had children,
Sure.
we are a mother, even without our own children, and the fact that you became a mother to your mother, and it's a title that we get to have on multiple levels.
Sure.
And it's been very powerful to hear about the women in your family and how you've lived with each other and how you've experienced each other. So thank you.
Thank you. You know what? I had a conversation with someone, and I have one of my best friends as a daughter, and we were talking, and she did something. And if we best friends, I should be able to correct your child. So very quickly I said, something to her. And it was okay, because that's me and her mother's thing. But the father came and said, he had and I really don't, they're going to see this, I'm sure I don't care about. They know I don't care. I'm going to look right at the camera, I don't care. But the conversation to the effect was, you're not a mother. You can't tell her the right thing.
No.
Let me tell you something. We were at a public venue, so I'm like, all right, I got you. I'm going to chill for a minute. But I had to, and I didn't, you know what? I didn't even address him after the fact because I had to think to myself, and he doesn't know I was going through all those exams and things of that nature when he said this. So it hurt doubly. And then furthermore, for your child to address me as aunt, it should matter. So my thing is, you can't put a label on me. Like you said, we're all mothers. I don't care if you've never given birth to a child biologically. We're all mothers in our own way, Sometimes you have to mother yourself. Like I said, I very much mother myself. Okay, Sharnell, get it together. I went in the bathroom a few minutes ago before everyone came in. Like, okay, girl, you didn't get this opportunity for nothing. Get it together, come on, do your thing. Like something you got to pep talk yourself. You have to mother yourself. You have to be who you need to be for yourself.
Fathers can be mothers too.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Oh, yeah. I don't want to knock the fathers at all, but very much so. Anybody have anything else? No? I'm going to go into my last piece. And I'm going to say this poem is not finished. But I finished it for tonight but I'm not sure if something else will come to it or not, but I've been working on this since my mother got sick. And it's called Prayers with Intent. And I titled it my epic poem. If you know about an epic poem, what is it? It's a trilogy poem. It took you through this thing, you went through that thing, you got here, and then, all those things came about. So that's why I say it may not be finished. So over the month of February, I've been learning how to pray with intent. Not just rattling off wants and laments, instead purposeful brief proses centered on exactly what I need, centered on exactly what those I intercede for find necessity. And what I found is when you speak deliberately with conviction of the Father, He'll give, He'll return life, He'll do so abundantly, He'll return recognition with the faith of a mustard seed, a minuscule amount, and the doubt you had delays. and the doubt you had derailed specifically. You know, what you thought had you tacked down, what you thought had you downtrodden, what you thought had you angry, what you thought had you depressed, proved to be nothing, just that, nothing. You see, over the month of February, I learned how to pray with intent. Somebody prayed for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. And I'm so glad they prayed, took the time and prayed. I'm so glad they prayed for me. I don't often bother folks with my concern. You know, we find it hard to tell people what's going on. I move them around my body. I mold them over in the mind. I crunch them down with my gnarly teeth. I swallow down shards into the stomach and rumble until it sits down with my bum. It's worn around the thighs. It switches around the knees. It bends until my calves pump it all into my ankles. And frankly, stomping it down with my feet is far more pleasing. Somebody pray for me. Had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. And I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed. Took the time and prayed for me. I'd asked Danielle to pray for me. That's my sister in poem. She quickly delivered. Without even asking what I desired, she knew. Somebody prayed for me. Had me on their mind. You know, when prayers are answered, folks become lax. When we get what we want, we lay back a little bit. When God delivers for us, we stop going to church a little bit. We start backsliding. We start saying a bad word or two if we already weren't. You know, your commandments start to twist. In turn, I've watched the miracle of my mother on the 21st day. Yes, she had surgery a few days before. Her birthday is February 21st. So they called me and they said, Miss Tull, we're going to do emergency surgery on your mother, emergency heart surgery, and we'll call you when everything is finished. I have nothing to do but say, okay, I want my mama to live, you know, and I'm running errands, going back and forth to work and all these things. And finally, when they call me back, he says, Miss Tull, I don't know how to tell you this, but your mother is awake. The day before, she couldn't even say my name. As I say, I'm my only child, so it's not hard for her. You hear her yelling my name, Sharnell, at any given moment. So the fact that she could not speak, and not only could she not speak, but she couldn't say my name, this is what she was doing while she was looking at me. Just letting me know she understand what I'm saying. And all the while I'm saying, you got to fight, girlfriend. You got to fight. You got to come home. You got to get it together. I can't survive without you. I can't do this without you. Somebody pray for me. Had me on their mind. Took the time and prayed for me. Somebody prayed for my mother as well. When I walked into her PICU room, y'all, I had some flowers for her because it was her birthday. I'm like, she can't do what she needs to do. At least she can open her eyes and see these flowers and these balloons. So I walk through and I'm carrying all this stuff. I'm lugging all, you know, the walk from where you got to park at the hospital is outrageous to where you're going in there. So I'm huffing and puffing and I get around the corner and I really don't even know how she saw me. This probably was all that was showing, my arm. And I heard her say, very sing-songish, and my mama cannot sing. She said, there's my daughter. I dropped everything in my hand and just burst into tears. Somebody pray for me, had me on their mind, took the time and prayed for me. And I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad y'all prayed. I'm so glad they prayed for me. When March roared the lioness Lorraine, my mother's name, did as always. She bit death back. I'd watched a miracle. I'd been taught about the woman with the issue of blood. I'd been taught the word withstood. I had been taught, and I knew, for example, that the brood, Donnie's brood, continued. I'd watched my mama die and be reborn too many times to settle with the code in. I'd watched my mama fight and be crowned champion too many times to settle with them burying her. When March roared, the lioness Lorraine did as always. She bit death back. She bit death back. Somebody pray for me. Had me on their mind. Took the time and prayed for me. And I'm so glad they prayed. Took the time and prayed. I'm so glad they prayed for me. Thank you.
That was truly incredible. I'm so honored that we got to experience that tonight. Thank you. A few of us have signed up to share some of their poems, and I'd like to know if you're here and you'd like to read. I know Kim would like to read. Would you like to kick us off? Sure. All right, Kim, come on. Thank you.
You were awesome, by the way. Reminded me a lot of my growing up, too. I'm Kim Vallejo, and I live in Eden. I saw this Mother's Day thing, and I lost my mom a long time ago, 1986 to be exact. I was 22. And every once in a while I think about her, and well, I'll just let the poetry say it for me. It's called Because She Was My Mom. She looked like a model, head full of tight curls, an unforgettable presence that could command any room, and had a vocabulary that would be a string of bleeps. She was my mom. She rode a bike, a Kawasaki, and sometimes took me to Catholic school on it while wearing a mini skirt and thigh-high boots. The nuns thought it a disgrace. I don't have to tell you her response. She was my mom. She worked teaching horribly abused kids, which took a toll on her, and she left, deciding to wire radar on ships. She was my mom. Sold her possessions so I could eat. Made a deal with her ex, my dad, about having a roof over my head. She was my mom. Some decisions I still don't understand. I don't know if she was painted into a corner or if she saw a whole picture. She was my mom. Not a saint, not a devil, just human with human failings. She was very strict, bragging to others that I walked 2 feet in one shoe, and she was always armed with a wooden spoon. She demanded excellence in my schoolwork, more than a bit fanatical about that, but she was my mom. I wonder if she knew that she would die young, as cancer took her at 44. Was this her way of making me resilient? I don't know. It's still a riddle to me. I don't know if she wasn't, I do know that if she wasn't here, neither would I be, because she was my mom. Thank you.
You're all just trying to make me cry. Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up and read? Therese? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, City of Salisbury and Nancy and Sista Big. I don't know if you remember, but you got your start at SWAC about many years ago. Good. We had a poetry night, or you came and did some poetry. So I'm the executive director. Not that it matters, but they said to tell about yourself. I think you said that early on. So okay, so here we go. So I'm the executive director of the Salisbury Wacomico Arts Council, and one of the things that we promote is, of course, the literary arts. And I totally agree with you. There's nothing like words. It's just the best. I'm also a published author and a Christian speaker and a minister and a musician and a bunch of other things that don't really matter tonight. But I wanted to read a poem that I wrote, and then I'd also like to read something that I didn't write, if I'm allowed to. As you were talking about, I've had a lot of, who hasn't, but I've had a lot of pain in my life. Different seasons, different things that are just atrocious. But, who hasn't? All families have pain. All people have pain. My most recent pain is the ill health of my only child. That seems to go on and seems like a lifetime, but anyway, that's not why I came to cry and tell you that. So, I don't have a monopoly on pain. We all share that. And my faith is what gets me through. I don't know what other people use, and I'm not here to proselytize or tell you that you should have faith, because everybody does their own thing, but I'm just telling you, for me, that's what keeps me going. So, a few years ago, when I was experiencing a different type of a pain, I thought I knew about pain till recently. I had no idea. I was an innocent. But now I'm a veteran. Okay, so a few years ago, my sister and I, if we're lucky, can get away over a couple years, we take a trip together, and it's magical. And we always go someplace that's inspiring. We went to a place in Wisconsin called Our Lady of Good Hope, Our Lady of Good Help. And it was, whether you're Catholic or not, that's not why I'm here to debate that or to tell you this is true or it isn't true, but it is reportedly the first shrine, the first place in America that the Blessed Mother appeared to people on this earth. And it's famous for that, and so people go for prayer requests. Well, when I was there, I was praying for families and praying for all of our pain. And this poem just poured out of me like water. And it's a family blessing to you from Our Lady of Good Help. And it's called Blue Roses. Blue roses for my lady. They are grown to show you why. She has my love, my deep respect, because she heard me cry. For mother's hug, we came to her, babes crying in the night. She held us close and rocked our fear, and soon the dark took flight. We traveled far without a plan, dire needs to ask her boy. She nudged her son for heaven's gold and sprinkled us with joy. Mother's care, a constant strength, surpasses all the maybe. Protective love digs in its heels. Who's messing with my baby? Blue roses for my lady, love for her holy heart. She answered prayer and healed our wounds for miracles to start. And when it came, the waves of hope, the tunnel's ending light, we recognized the grace received, not made from human might. Heart skipped a beat and breath was caught at absence from the pain. Dazzling white with gifts from God turned torture into gain. With praise to God for his wise choice, a mother for us all, the weight and the weight has gone and peace reborn through Christ, our wailing wall. Blue roses for my lady, In thanksgiving they grow high. To give me hope, to build new dreams, she bore her son to die. And the scripture that goes with it is John 2:3. The mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And sometimes we have no wine. And we hope that she'll ask him again for us. She is the woman that changed the world. And she has endured the greatest and most unimaginable pain of all. So that helped me. I hope it helped you. So I wrote that in 2013. This one I did not write, but it's so good that I had to share it with you. It's called A Little Parable for Mothers. It's by Temple Bailey. The young mother set her foot on the path of life. Is the way long? Excuse me. Is the way long? She asked. And the angel said, yes, and the way is hard, and you will be old before you reach the end of it. But the end will be better than the beginning. But the young mother was happy and would not believe that anything could be better than these years. So she played with her children and gathered flowers for them along the way and bathed them in the clear streams, and the sun shone on them, and life was good. And the young mother cried, nothing will ever be lovelier than this. Then came the night and storm, and the path was dark, and the children shook with fear and cold. And the mother drew them close and covered them with her mantle. And the children said, "O mother, we are not afraid, for you are near and no harm can come." And the mother said, "This is better than the brightness of day, for today I have taught my children courage. Today I have given them strength." And the next day came strange clouds which darkened the earth, clouds of war, clouds of hate, clouds of evil. And the children groped and stumbled, and the mother said, "Look up, lift your eyes to the light." And the children looked and saw above the clouds an everlasting glory, and it guided them and brought them beyond the darkness. And that night the mother said, "This is the best day of all, for today I have shown my children God." And the days went on, and the weeks, and the months, and the years, and the mother grew old, and she was little and bent. But her children were tall and strong and walked with courage. And when the way was hard, they helped their mother. And when the way was rough, they lifted her, for she was as light as a feather. And at last they came to a hill, and beyond this hill they could see a shining road and golden gates flung wide. And the mother said, "I have reached the end of my journey, and now I know that the end is better than the beginning. For my children can walk alone, and their children after them." And the children said, "You will always walk with us, Mother, even when you have gone through the gates." And they stood and watched her as she went on alone, and the gates closed after her. And they said, "We cannot see her, but she is with us still. A mother like ours is more than a memory. She is a living presence." Thank you.
Yes, my friend. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Would you mind? And then I would love it if you would close us out. Okay. Would that be all right? Yeah, that's fine. That's perfect. Thank you, Sharnell. Thank you. My name's Amy. Tough act to follow, you guys, but I look forward to trying. So I'm also a self-published poet as well. So I'm going to read just a couple. This one I wrote last year for Mother's Day. Mother's Day, a complicated thing, this concept of mother. We all come from someone, so we all get a say. Do this, not that. Everyone defines it their own way.
To become a mother, a loaded topic in itself, not to mention those who want to but are unable. Heartbreak and anguish often beset those. The multitude of informal moments in life where mothering occurs, the concept of a village, raising one another's as one's own. Exploring my own feelings, grateful for the women in my family. I knew I was safe. I was a priority. Grateful my path was different, indirectly in this role, choosing to care for those created by others with focus on loving words and encouragement. I suppose there is no one right way to be a mom. Despite each of us walking around with expectations, everyone doing their best, falling short most assuredly. Some claim children are here to teach us. They choose us, which means being a mother might simply be remaining open to the lesson. What is this child here to show me? Today stirs up feelings of sorrow and loss for many, bitter disappointment and frustration for others, tear-filled eyes of joy and appreciation for some. Wherever you are today, I love you, and I wish you a mother's love in whatever form you want to receive it, today and every day. Happy Mother's Day. This next one's called Squeezed Between. At that age where your energies are pulled, raising kids into adulthood while also helping parents into aging, I observe my friends frayed from the strain, worry cast in all directions. This is a particularly exhausting time. Both parties crave their independence, yet both need watchful attention, keeping them out of harm's way. For the caregiver, there is no out of office. The phone calls can come at any time, heart racing. What is it this time? Dropping everything, racing to deal with the latest surprise. The tricky part is how to refuel the tank. Me time is for the betterment of everyone, yet those who need it are too damn tired, too tired to relax, to blow off steam. Creating that time requires effort they don't possess. There are no easy solutions, only compassion. This is a hard thing. I know your heart is heavy. I'm here sitting with you as you do this hard thing.
Thank you to everyone who read. That was wonderful. Before Sharnell comes up to close up this incredible evening of poetry, I want to say thank you again to Salisbury's Poet Laureate, Nancy Mitchell. Yay. for keeping us on our toes and bringing poetry to every moment of our days here. Thank you to Alan Swiger, the director of the Arts, Business, and Culture Department, ABCD. And thank you to the Salisbury Arts Alliance for helping fund this, as well as the Salisbury Art Space for letting us come inside. Next month, we will be back at Salisbury headquarters. So I hope you'll join us then. But Sharnell, would you like to come up? Thank you.
I forgot that Nancy asked me to do Valley of Dry Bones. And so I was just thinking, let me do that for her real quick. And in a vision, God sets Ezekiel down in a valley full of dry bones. God explains that they are the bones of the house of Israel. These people believe that their fate is sealed and there's no restoration of their kingdom and of their land, but there will be a resurrection. There will be a resurrection. There will be a resurrection of the dead, and that is the meaning of dry bones coming to life. On desert land, we find our brethren corpses aplenty, sun-berated, viscerating any. And imagine the nature of us, okay with me willingly watching the rot, okay with you willingly watching the death, the dry, the disturbing, and the disappointing, unfit for settling we serve, unfit for dying we live, unfit for torture we laugh. We rattle deer, and life will abundantly bulldoze, and with proclaiming prophecy, like magic, the bones began to stir. The flesh began to grow plump. and look in the middle of the valley where a bunker unseen held captive the evergreen lush of life, the evergreen lush of living, the evergreen lush of breathing, ever being that lie collecting naps burst up with up. They burst up with life. They burst up with breath. Valley of Dry Bones. And that's what's funny, that's her favorite poem. Thank you. What's funny about that is I remember the video vividly. It's just, I used to just, I would record my voice saying the poem like nothing else. But that day I was at work and I used to do home health aid work, and I had a little girl, and we were sitting outside just chilling, and the sky for some reason was so purple and dark that day. I'm like, this would be nice if I recorded my voice saying something to just, it was like a 30-second video of me, just like a radio spot of just me talking. And I don't know, we were just talking one day, and I think I randomly sent it to you. Yeah. And ever since then, like, that's one thing she'll request, like a poem about dry bone. But the poem is, it's about reclaiming your life. It's about not knowing about your resurrection.
I just want to say thank you for reading that. I won't go into great detail, but I have been claiming that scripture about the dry bones.
You're what reminded me of it when you started saying the scripture of yours. I'm like, oh snap, I forgot to do.
My daughter, part of her problem is with bones.
Wow.
And I have been claiming that. I told her the other day, I said, God raised up dry bones. And
come on now.
And it's in you. And so I've been holding on to that for hope, and then you get up and read it, I'm like, yes.
See the magic of words? You can't close better than that, for real. The magic of words, you can reclaim your fear with words. You can reclaim your power, your life, everything, your breath. She's gonna live. Her bones are gonna be healed. Everything about her is gonna be healed. And I know God, I know him to be true. And I know you. Like you say, but SWAC gave me my first real opportunity here in Salisbury. I did like a 10-piece artwork thing. I still have it at home boxed up. It's about flowers. I wrote my second book, When April Doesn't Bloom, and the artwork, it's a poem and an artwork piece that takes you through the journey of your seedling to full bloom of the flower of you. And I literally think I ran through that whole workshop maybe 6 or 7 times that night for different groups that were coming in. They didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about them. They just knew she had a talent, knew she had something to say. And after that, I think it was Salisbury, like, as I've always been in work with Salisbury in some type of way ever since SWAG. So definitely happy to see you here tonight. You didn't have to remind me of who you are, baby. I know who you are. I thank you guys for coming tonight. I know we were supposed to have bad weather. It's beautiful outside. I hope so. We just got us stuck in here, but it's okay. It just gave us a little more closeness to say what we needed to say tonight. I always get upset when I have shows and not a lot of people come, or who you thought was coming didn't come. But you know what? It was who it was for.
The right people?
Yes. And the right people got their message. That was exactly. And you got what you were supposed to get tonight. I didn't know who was coming. I always share flyers, but you can't make people do what you want them to do, even though, So I appreciate this. I love poetry. I love giving poetry. I love saying it. I love talking about it. I love hearing it from other people. You guys inspire me. I am always gracious and humble to be here, to serve in the way I do. I do have business cards. Of course, like Nancy said, I didn't even think to bring books or anything. But I have business cards. Please reach out to me if you know an event or anything. I do all kinds of stuff. I do workshop facilitation. I go into schools. I do pretty much anything, and I can do anything, humbly speaking. So I appreciate you all, and thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you all, and we'll see you in June at Salisbury headquarters. Thank you and good night.